p.m. We're bringing developing news and the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories we're watching this Monday, May 5th. Senator Bongo continues to lead in the latest Senatorial Polls Asia survey with a 62.2% rating. All other top 12 senatorial bets posted lower ratings except for Go, whose numbers slightly rose from 61.9. Representative Edwin Tulfo trailed behind at 42.4. The survey was conducted between April 20 and 24 among 2,400 respondents with a minus plus 2% margin of error. The Philippine Navy confirms that the former BRP Miguel Malvar sank off the coast of Zambales due to rough waves before it could even be used as a target for Balikatan 2025. The decommissioned Navy ship was supposed to be part of a simulated naval attack under the Philippine-U.S. joint military exercises. Naunahan siya. Former presidential spokesman Harry Roque spoke to a few dozen Duterte supporters on Saturday, May 3 at Olympia Park in Munich, Germany. He criticizes the Marcos administration again from inflation to the rise in self-rated poverty to alleged rice hoarding. Tony Roque also said he is not on the run but will stay in the Schengen area until a decision is made on his asylum application. He is facing a string of charges back in the Philippines, including the non-bailable case of qualified human trafficking over his alleged connection to Pogos. The government is studying the possible reduction of driving hours for bus drivers following a series of fatal road accidents. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says the DOTR is now considering lowering the current driving limit from 6 hours to just 4 hours. She noted, however, that this must be carefully weighed as shorter hours could also mean lower income. Meantime, the DOTR has ordered mandatory drug testing for all public utility vehicle drivers. And Infinitus Marketing Solutions Incorporated denies operating trolls or spreading disinformation for the Chinese embassy ahead of the elections. Co-founder Paul Lee confirms that they received 930,000 pesos from the Chinese embassy in 2023, but denied knowledge of a contract mentioned in a Senate hearing. Infinitus also admitted the TikTok host hiring requirements, saying it was part of their professional services. And joining us today, Storycon's resident political papa, Tito Ronald Llamas.
Happy Monday!
Happy Monday!
Ed,
Bakit masaya ka ngayon?
ha? Pag Monday naman, dapat masaya ka.
Oo, kasi
Dahil sa
bagong
new
linggo.
week, bagong linggo. No? At almost a week na lang ay election na.
Masaya ka dahil doon?
Hindi.
Okay. Tingnan natin kung masaya ang ating kasama dyan via Zoom from the Philippine Star, ang editor-in-chief na si Ami Pamintuan.
Hi, Ami.
Hi.
Yan.
Happy Monday.
Mas,
Yan, parating
Happy
masaya.
Monday.
mas grayish yung kalmo ngayon. Tayo. Medyo,
Oo.
Iba ang ano ni
Hindi na,
Ami.
hindi na puro itim at puti.
parang pa yan. Kasing gray ng parating na election.
Ito, tanong natin itong isa. Kung siya ba'y masaya sa araw na ito. Ang ating
Wow.
co-anchor, si Miss Regina Lay, who
Wow.
joins us from Germany.
Umunguya-nguya pa.
Wow.
Umunguya-nguya pa.
Sorry, it's 10 a.m. Kaka-breakfast ko lang
10
dito.
a.m.
It's 10 a.m.
Hanggang dyan, naka-zebra look ka.
Zebra ba ito? This is very, this is preppy. Look, hindi naman zigzag.
Zebra
Ito talaga.
look.
Di mo,
Interview mo ba siya, no? Si Harry Roque?
Di mo, nagpapaliwanag. Aga-aga, sinira ko yung araw, di ba? Ganyan.
No, it's 2 nights a day. I mean, na-interview ko na. So,
Na-interview na.
Yeah.
So,
Nakayanan mo. Nakayanan mo,
Then, anong ginagawa niya sa Germany?
So the story was, so I was in Munich and I'm here for personal reasons. I'm here to attend the funeral. Pero we had some time on the first day. So naglalakad lang kami in the center of Munich. And then my husband and my friend, my husband was trying to make a joke na may Starbucks kasi in the middle of the Munich Plaza. And there was no one there. You know, in Europe, Starbucks isn't really a thing, right? It's nobody goes to Starbucks. So there was just a table there with one table with some Asians, and then my husband made a joke. Now, oh look, there's nobody at Starbucks except some people who look like they might be Filipinos. And then I looked back and I thought, and then he said one of them actually looks like the spokesperson of Duterte. And I looked up and I said, oh my gosh, he is the spokesperson of Duterte because medyo malayo kasi. I was like, he does look like it. So I went closer, and true enough, it was him. And I thought, okay, let's go say hi because we've interviewed him before, right? So I introduced myself, parang naalala naman niya, and he said, and he was with two women. They invited me to a rally, right? That very afternoon. This was Saturday. So in-invite ako sa rally. They said they are, of course, it's a free Duterte rally. Akala ko nga nung una, baka dumating sila pulong Duterte. So I said, okay, pupunta ako sa rally, which is what you're rolling in the video right now, right? And he was talking to some OFWs, and he spoke for about an hour or so. And he said, oh, but sorry, I fast forwarded. But when in Munich, when I bumped into him, I asked him, of course, about the charges, yung non-bailable charges. He says, plinanta daw yung evidence. Sorry, not plinanta yung evidence. That case was planted against him. It has no basis. Hindi daw na-authenticate yung documents tying him to the Pogos, and that this is all, of course, just political persecution. So he says he's actually using that case as further justification for his asylum application, because he says this is clear political persecution because they didn't authenticate the documents, therefore walang kaso. So yun yung argument niya to the Netherlands, to the Dutch embassy. Sorry, not embassy, to the Dutch government as he's applying for asylum. And he says he's confident, nakabinbin naman daw yung kaso, his asylum case, and he's confident na, he will get a fair shake in terms of that application. And then, of course, dun sa rally, he spent the most time hitting out at the Marcos administration over all the issues, right? Illiteracy rates are very high. Yung self-rated poverty is at 52% now. Yung pictures that we're looking at right now, yun yung mga placards and posters that they brought to the rally in Munich, Olympia Park in Munich. And to be honest, I thought there would be more people, but apparently nahiwalay sila, nagkahiwalay-hiwalay. There were two other group gatherings daw in the park na hindi na nagka-miscommunication, so that's why nagkahiwalay. But he says na, as you're showing on the straps right now, he's not on the run. He insists he's not on the run, but he will stay in Schengen area until they decide on his asylum application. So he says, I said, well, why don't you face the cases, right? As some of the lawmakers in Congress are saying. And he says, well, I am facing the cases. He is fighting it. Pero wala lang siya doon. So...
well, in fairness sa kanya, wala pa namang arrest warrant against him, I think, dun sa, as far as dun sa Pogo case is concerned.
Wala pa.
He says the charges pa lang, wala pa.
May extradition treaty ba tayo with the Netherlands?
I don't think so.
Parang wala eh. Parang wala.
Parang wala. I haven't seen anything. And even then...
Meron yata.
Well, let me check.
I think we, di ba merong request nun over Joma? Kaya lang hindi nga pinagbigyan dahil meron daw death threat sa kanya dito. Verifiable death threat.
Wala naman yatang death threats kay Harry Roque.
Well, let me check.
Pero di ba yung kay Harry, di ba kinancel yung visa niya? Hindi pa ba kinakancel? Meron ganung story na the government was planning to seek the cancellation.
Yes. So the government is planning to block his asylum application. Hindi ko lang alam if they're gonna go so far as to request that his visa be cancelled. Kasi if pagkakaintindi ko is when you file an asylum application, then you can stay in that country until after they've decided.
Yeah.
Right? And because this is Schengen, you can freely move around. Pero hindi ko lang alam how far the government will go to cancel his legal status here.
We don't have an extradition treaty with the Netherlands yet. We only have with 14 countries. In 2019, people were urging the government to go into an extradition treaty with the Netherlands, pero mukhang hindi pa umaandar yon. So that's
so
as
wala
far
nga,
as Netherlands
oo.
is concerned.
So wala nga. Yeah.
Although
Exactly. And
it's also curious, Reggie, kasi you mentioned na si Harry was criticizing government for the literacy rates in the Philippines. I think he's referring to yung functional literacy rates that we published, I think, last week. But those results were from 2019.
From 2018.
No,
Yeah.
2019 to
Panahon nila yun.
2023.
Panahon nila yun.
So, at least half of that is from from their time.
Oo. May gestation period yan. Hindi naman yan nangyayari overnight.
And I mean, it's the same for the other issues, right? Like na-mention din niya yung price of rice. Matagal na rin naman mataas yung price of rice, right? One of the reasons, somebody asked him, bakit yung presyo ng bigas they can't bring it down? And he said, well, may hoarding problems kasi kilala ng administration sino yung mga big hoarders, hindi lang nila mahabol. But that was, I believe, the case. That's been the case for many, many years. Right?
Yes.
There's always been talk na there's big time hoarders that are connected to politicians that are untouchable. And so it's the same. It's the same economic issues that he brought up.
Kaya lang naman naging issue sa Marcos administration ng rice dahil dun sa
Nangako siya.
campaign promise na 20 pesos per kilo. Kaya lang naman na-focus yan sa kanila. Oh.
Anong kinakain mo dyan, Reg?
Baka kanin.
Pretzels.
Okay. Si Harry, anong iniinom niya sa Starbucks? Dami masasarap na coffee shop dyan. Bakit Starbucks ang pinili niya?
Baka he feels,
Naalala niya?
he wanted to, mas familiar siguro. I don't know. I didn't get to ask him that.
Tinanong mo kung planted din si Mr. Supranational.
Hindi. Wala. He only spoke.
Tatanong lang eh.
He only spoke to me for 5 minutes as kailangan na niya umalis. But he's the one thing that surprised me about the rally at the end of it is they gathered together. Makikita mo dun sa videos that you're showing. And then he was egging the people on, like sabi niya, on my cue, let's all say bangag. Then they went bangag. And then which we all know is, a dig at the Marcos administration, at the President Marcos, right? Tapos meron ding, Marcos resign. So, out here, he's very vocal. Ano siya?
Hindi na niya inulit, Reg, yung person ng kasamaan tsaka person ng kadiliman. Hindi na inulit.
Hindi na.
Sarap lang nguya niya. Katama yung pagsubo niyo.
Sana kinamusta mo ako sa kanya.
Pero, Reg, pinunta niya dyan yung rally lang? He's there only for the rally?
Parang. Hindi ko siya natanong when he's going back to The Hague. But yung mga kasama niya, one of them also lives in Den Haag. So, baka, they might go back together. Mabilis lang naman from here, from Germany.
So yung passport pala niya hindi kinancel ng DFA?
Hindi pa, as far as I know, because he's able to...
Kasi he can move around eh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't need a passport naman to move around
That's also
here
true.
in Schengen.
Basta hindi ka naman check.
As far as I know, they haven't gotten that far. And again, to Ed's point, wala pa naman yung warrant.
Wala pang court-issued arrest warrant.
There's no charge. Correct. There's no court-ordered warrant pa naman.
Pero kung lumabas ka ng Netherlands, pumunta ka sa ibang bansa at natsyempohan ka na walang passport, ay huhulihin ka.
Yeah, you need a passport.
Although within that area kasi maaring i-check, maaring hindi eh. Basta lang
Pero pag natsyempohan ka, huhulihin ka.
Hindi, i-alert siya ng gobyerno natin eh.
Reg, I have a question lang. Although I don't know lang if this was brought up kasi this happened I think over the weekend din eh. Or just before the weekend. Si Harry kasi has been making these vlogs on his Facebook page alleging na headlines daw sa Hong Kong and Taiwan media that the Hong Kong Monetary Authority is investigating the Marcos family for alleged money laundering to the tune of $100 billion. and 350 tons of gold. That's his claim. That's his allegation. It's being echoed by many of the pro-Duterte vloggers. Yun lang. I don't know if he's brought it up or if he's mentioned it during the rally na meron siyang ganung assertion. We haven't been able to check it kasi it's also hard to hard to verify kung meron ang ganun talagang allegation or assertion with the Hong Kong media and the sources.
We weren't able to talk about that kasi nga I only had 5 minutes with him. Pero I know the report you're talking about where allegedly may whistleblower who showed evidence
Mr.
that
Peng
there was a sale of 350 tons of gold using a Hong Kong bank. Hindi ko pa nakita yung actual investigation, whether that's true in Hong Kong, and I haven't seen media coverage of it as well.
Kasi Harry's assertion is that it's all over the headlines daw of Hong Kong and Taiwan and bakit daw hindi ginagamit o hindi daw pinipick up ng Philippine media.
Exage naman yung sinabi niya.
There's also that dig at the Philippine media na parang this is the story and you guys are ignoring it.
Pero exaggerated. It's not in the...
That's
it's not all over the
Wala akong
Hong Kong
nakikitang
media.
ganun.
We haven't
And
seen
I
anything
monitor all the media, yung mga reputable
we
media.
haven't seen anything,
Yeah.
especially with the international agencies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
baka lang merong baka lang may bagong sinabi o merong may patunay na nilabas.
Kung totoo man yan, that's Hong Kong and that will be the Chinese
si Ronnie.
government.
Yes.
Siya pwedeng mangyari. Kaya lang sa ngayon, walang ganong report kaming nakukuha. Ha?
Pero madaling gawin yun dahil Hong Kong is under China.
That's also another element there.
Yes, under China.
That's also
Kami
another
din,
element.
wala kami nakuha. And what was I gonna say? It doesn't feel like it's all over, as he's saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like may mainstream
Malaking
media is all over.
istorya yan. It cannot be ignored by the international media.
Like
no?
Reuters or AP.
Pero
Yes.
Correct.
Or Bloomberg.
And to be, and you know, tayo naman, if na-pick up na in other media, we would have picked it up too. There's no blackout.
Yeah.
There's
Of
no
course.
conspiracy. Wala naman conspiracy. Because I saw some of these posts na that Ed is saying na bakit sa Pilipinas walang coverage, walang media pickup, right? Baka they're trying to
Hindi ka naman maka-news blackout na ngayong
they're
panahon.
trying to
Ano?
impute malice on our part.
May manis.
Correct.
Kahapon in-interview
They're
ako
trying
ng
to impute malice.
Kahapon in-interview ako ng isang major Taiwanese media group. Wala silang alam tungkol doon eh. Tsaka natatawa sila dahil 356 tons of gold.
Tons of that's how many kilos?
Medyo mahirap buhatin 'yon. Mahirap itago 'yon.
Okay.
Sa ano yan?
Sabi ko
But
sa'yo, alis na.
speaking of Chinese, so I've been following the news there as well. May Senate hearing kanina.
Malis na si Ronnie.
Yes.
Yes, grabe yun. It feels to me very much like a witch hunt because I don't think what they're alleging, which is this firm Infinitus was working as a troll farm on behalf of the Chinese embassy. I mean, it didn't come across. Hindi ko alam if pinanood mo, but there was absolutely no evidence to back it up, and it felt to me very much like a witch hunt.
Okay.
And I was thinking, okay, 7 days na lang till the elections. Are we still? I don't know if we're still doing this.
Okay, Reg, sorry, I have to cut you there. But you're welcome to join us if you're still available. See, Ronald Holmes is on Zoom right now,
okay.
joining us to talk about the latest
Sige
Pulse
po.
Asia survey. Sir, magandang umaga. Sorry, ano bang yun? Hapon. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome back to Storycon.
Magandang hapon. Magandang hapon sa inyo.
Hi, Professor.
Hi, Professor. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Pro.
Hi,
Prof.
Prof. Hi, fellow professor.
Yung tukayo ninyo. Prof, I'm looking at the numbers again. And I don't bother to look at the top 6 anymore. I'm more concerned and I'm more interested with the bottom 6 and the ones past the bottom 6 eh. So si Camille Villar mukhang nasa safety zone. Samantalang si Ipe, si Marcoleta ay lumalapit doon sa sa winning 12. And Kiko is down. Am I reading this right compared to the previous, to the previous Pulse Asia survey?
Boked yung kay Philip at saka yung kay Marcoleta, actually bumaba yan compared to the last survey na kung saan ay pareho silang basically mas
Pasok
malapit
sila.
no, or in contention. Halos lahat sila bumagsak. Kasi ang
Yes.
ginamit namin dito ay balota na at nakikita nito sa report, yung fill-up rate natin by area bumaba. For example, sa Balance of Luzon, naging 7-6 na lang ang pinipiling pangalan. Sa Metro Manila, 8.
6 lang. Okay.
Dati sa Visayas Mindanao, 12 yung mayorya ng botante. Ngayon ay 10 na lang. So, ibig sabihin parang nababawasan pa yung kanyang binoboto. So, may mga areas sa Mindanao na makikita mo yung Duterte lang ang binoboto nila. Pero may nasisingit. Nasisingit si Mong Revilla, nasisingit si Manny Pacquiao. So, hindi natin masabi kung sino talaga yung delikado kasi dikit-dikit eh. Pag tingnan mo yung numero nila, essentially, ang pagkakaiba lang nung Cayetano down to Marcos or Aquino, who is in contention, ay wala pang 4 na puntos.
Yan, nung napansin ko, Professor, out pa rin si Amy Marcos, no, from the Magic 12. Hindi nakuha, hindi nagkaroon ng bump, ano? Yung mga
Mukhang
recent high-profile stories about her.
Mukhang hindi pa nagre-resonate at mukhang hindi rin, pag tingnan namin yung numero, binigdown mo by region, bumaba pa siya sa region 1 namin.
Bumaba siya, actually, yeah.
Sa region 1, mismong sa region niya. So, at hindi ba siya nagpipick up sa ibang region na malakas sa mga Duterte. So, hindi
Yes.
natin alam kung ito'y dahil sa hindi pa katagalan yung endorsement at hindi pa nagre-resonate yung kanya advertisement. At ang kulay ay yung kulay na kasuotan ko. Hindi ibig sabihin ako'y nakikipagduksa sa kanila. Pero, yun ang problema, no? Hindi siya pumapasok at hindi siya nakikinabang pa sa ngayon doon sa endorsement. Wala naman natin yan batay sa mangyayari sa actual na election kung bibit-bitin ba talaga siya.
Prof, yung binanggit nyo na maraming kandidato na magkakadikit, practically 4 percentage points. Sila ba yung nagtatalo for the last seat or the last 2 seats?
Hindi lang last seat eh. Parang halahati nung tinitingnan natin dito eh. Pag tingnan mo,
Mataas
tayo,
yun,
simula kay Ben Tulfo, pababa kay Bam Aquino, ang difference niya ay 8 percentage points. At naglalaro talaga, no? And everyone actually declined. So in the case of, let's say, the biggest decline we saw in this survey is si Bato de la Rosa, 7.7, si Erwin Tulfo, 8.7 points. So hindi natin malaman kung ano mangyayari sa eleksyon. Kasi nung mga nakaraang eleksyon, we did surveys closer to election day. We failed to publish it because we got the results later. And we saw the increase in terms of voting support for those who eventually ended up number 1, and the decline in terms of voting support for those who were in number 9. If you remember, in 2022, I think Joel Villanueva was out of contention in the April survey. He eventually landed number 9. So in that sense, what was the reason behind Joel Villanueva's increasing support? Those would be in areas probably that he had negotiated support from local politicians or in areas where he can mobilize support. So that's not
JIL
counted
yun eh.
in the survey. That's not counted in the
Jesus
survey.
is Lord, John.
Hindi, pero
Jesus is Lord, dami, pero hindi natin alam kung gaano
maliit,
karami member
maliit
ng
lang,
Jesus is
maliit
Lord.
lang ang Jesus is Lord eh. Mukhang dinala si Joel ng Iglesia, ng KOJC, ng Evangelicals, at saka ng Jesus. Halos lahat dinala siya eh. Dinala siya ng Duterte, ng Marcos, ng Lenny. Lahat dinala siya eh. Kaya nakapasok siya talaga. Walang kumontra sa kanya eh. No? Yung magkakalaban ng mga presidente, dinala siya halos lahat.
So,
Mukhang
essentially,
nakikita na walang influence yung KOJC, no? Ang baba-baba ni Kibuloy eh.
well, alam naman natin na bloated yung numero ng KOJC, no? Actually, lahat halos ng mga yung mga grupo na religious na labas sa institutional church, katulad
Down
ng
sila.
El Shaddai, Jesus is Lord, KOJC, ang
Yeah.
hirap bilangin yan eh. Ang INC, ang aming tantya, batay na rin sa census, ay mga 2 million at most, no? Or it can be even low as 1.5 million. It will make a difference in terms of those who are in the 9 to 12 position. Because if we're saying that out of that 1.5 million, 80% will comply, then that's quite a huge number. It can bump up the number of someone who is endorsed by the INC.
Pero ang sinasabi mo, Prof, 4 or even more slots are in contention because of your latest survey. Yun ang pinapakita.
Yeah, basically, anim eh.
So, 4
Pwede
to
gumalaw
6.
kasi nasa baba nila eh. The lower half, hindi sigurado yan eh. So, yun ang problema natin dyan. Hindi natin masabi na yung last 2 positions lang. Maaaring yung 6 na yan eh. Kasi dikit-dikit sila eh. Pag tingnan mo, si Ben Tulfo in the last 3 surveys, patuloy siyang bumababa. Si Lito Lapid parang nagfluctuate. Si Abby Binay bumaba ng 5 puntos dito sa survey na ito. Si Pia Cayetano halos 8 puntos sa binaba. Si Willie Rebillame patuloy rin ng pagbaba ng kanyang numero simula nung Enero. So,
Pero malaki rin yung binaba.
aakyat,
Malaki rin yung binaba ni Bato, more than 7 points.
it's more than 7 points, 7.7 points. Tapos ang umakyat lang actually dito, dalawa lang eh, and marginal pa. Si Bongo na 0.3 percentage points at si Benel Abalos 2.6 percentage points. So, hindi natin alam kung aakyat pa si Abalos, si Kiko Pangilinan, malaki rin binaba niya. So, it's very hard to predict, basically.
Sir,
Prof,
yung fill-up
Prof,
rates
hindi
niyo,
ba,
sir.
that's pretty common, no, Prof? Like 5 or 6 names vying for the last 2 spots. I remember the 2022 elections were also pretty hotly contested. Di ba usual lang yun? And how important is this last push, these last 7 days?
Well, basically, this is where the what's this mobilization capacity of these
Machinery.
candidates would make a difference. So, and by mobilizational capacity, it means essentially whether they will be carried by the local politicians that they shook hands with. Right now, for example, in the news today, the news report is that Cebu, Gwen Garcia, has endorsed the 10 Alianza members. But we know, based on survey data, that the Alianza members are not doing that well in Cebu. So, will Gwen Garcia's endorsement make a difference? That's a big question here. Can she really mobilize support for those that she's endorsing? Or is the endorsement just a mere endorsement, which would not really have an effect in terms of voting disposition? So that's really the question here. And unless we do the observations on the ground, the last time I did that was in 2016, we would not be able to say essentially how those endorsements would really make a difference. Pero malaking papel yan, malaking bahagi yan ng maaari makapagbago.
Merong pwedeng mangyari, Prof, in this election na medyo naiiba. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na mangyayari. Pero kung halimbawa, ang Iglesia ni Cristo at saka JIL for the first time ay hindi mag-endorse ng 12 kandidato. Kung i-endorse lamang nila ay mas kaunti, about 6 to 8. First time mangyayari yan, usually kasi kinukumpleto nila. Anong epekto niyan? Will that help dun sa mga nasa bandang dulo?
Well, kung ang hindi endorse ay yung nasa taas, tukayo, yun ang may epekto. Kasi pag in-endorse mo yung nasa taas, kahit mag-endorse ka nung nasa baba, hindi babawasan boto yung nakakataas sa kanila. It really depends on who the INC will endorse. No? If the INC will endorse those who are now in the top 10, then it will make a difference if they're endorsing people who are in the 14th or 15th position.
Mukhang ang i-endorse nila, hindi ko naman sinasabi na yun ang mangyayari. Mukhang i-endorse nila ay kalahati nasa top 10 at kalahati ay wala labas ng top 10.
Yeah, mukhang ikaw ng bagong executive minister. Pero,
Wala yun, hula lang.
yeah, but really, if they're endorsing, let's say, the top 6 and they're endorsing people who are, like, let's say, now landing on 13 to 18, then it may make a difference because essentially they're wiping out the numbers who could have actually added to the bottom 6, no? The ones who are, on, let's say, from the 7th to the 12th position right now. But that's really, well, we have not seen that type of endorsement on the part of the INC. What we've seen on the part of the INC generally is that they will endorse most of the ones who are really in contention, with the exception of maybe one or two.
Sigurista.
Pero ngayon iba,
So,
mukhang iba ngayon.
Sir, I'm
Well,
looking at your the fill-up rates that you publish. 6 yung balance Luzon ng median tsaka yung mean versus Mindanao na nasa 9 or 10 depending on whether you look at mean or median. Is this this usually the case, or is this unusual for this particular election? And what does this mean? Does this mean people in Luzon are not as interested, or they don't have too much choices?
well, basically, NCR and the balance of Luzon have lower fill-up rates, no, in the surveys that we've conducted over the past few months. Yung Visayas and Mindanao have had mean and median of 11 and 12. That it has declined to 9 and 10 might indicate essentially some sort of what's that? A tendency towards black voting, which would not be good for the Allianza if this happens to be Mindanao. Because in the case of
Yeah.
Mindanao, of course, that's
Ang laki ng
24% of the voting population. The question is whether that 24% will turn out. And then the other question here is that in NCR, we're seeing a decline in terms of support for those who are in the Duterte. So, medyo nakangangat sila nung March, pero ngayon mukhang bumababa yung suporta nila sa NCR at Balance of Luzon. So that's the reason why Philip Salvador and let's say Marcoleta did get into contention in
Last
March.
month. So,
And
totoo yung sinasabi nyo, Professor, na yung nangyari last March is basically a consolidation, not a surge.
Well, basically activation and consolidation of their base. It's an activation of the base. It's a pero beyond that base, they really had to strategize on how they can secure support in the other areas. And that's really, I don't know the capacity of the Duterte to do that. The administration can do that. In 2019, if you remember, si Francis Tolentino was not in contention in the April survey, eventually landed number 12 or 11, if I'm not mistaken. The one who was is out then was si Bamakino. So yun yung ano, no, yun yung question sila JBL, sila Bamakino na wala nung
Professor, yung last 6, kapag ganyan ka-close yung laban sa last 6, malaking bagay yung machinery, no?
Malaking bagay
ito, itong final week na to.
Malaking bagay makinarya.
So, pwedeng mag-iba talaga ng husto yung final 6 na yan.
At mayroong dalawang level yung makinarya na yan, Ami. Yung makinarya ng probinsya na malalaki ang populasyon. At
Yes.
yung makinarya ng pambansang pamahalaan na maaaring pagilawin ang iba't ibang grupo batay sa kanilang kakayanan. No? And pag sinabi natin kakayanan, alam na nito kayo yan.
Yes.
Iba't ibang klase yan.
Prof, what can be done in the practically last week? May mga kandidato kasi na nagbabago ng messaging. Parang hindi na siya ganun ka-effective during the last week. Sabi nyo nga, it's basically machinery. So wearing your political scientist hat, what can they do itong last week na ito?
Buti
Sino
sana
yung
kung may
nagbabago ng messaging?
Buti sana kung may sombrero pa ako eh. Hanapin ko lang sombrero.
Senator Abalos.
Wala na masyadong epekto yung pagbabago ng mensahe kasi nga ika nga ng ilang mga strategists, the ones who are in communication, that is something that is important prior to the filing of candidacy, prior to the formal campaign and in the early campaign period. At this point, what you're trying to do is really make sure that your name gets into many of the sample ballots, make sure that you're in a negotiation and in agreement with many of the local politicians. Ang ginagawa ng mga kandidato ngayon, pumupunta na sa mga probinsya, kinakamayan na yung mga governor, kinakamayan na yung mga mayor ng mga highly urbanized cities. So, dito parang nagkakaroon ng kasunduan. At kung walang kasunduan, parang goodwill lang. No? Pero hindi natin alam kung magde-deliver sila.
Basically, machinery. Basically,
Yun yung
machinery.
makinarya ang aasahan nila. Kung yung makinarya ng lokal. Kasi yung national, ang meron lang talaga niya, yung administrasyon. At hindi ko alam kung well-oiled ba yung kanilang machinery at mukhang medyo divided. No? Kasi kung divided, it would not in any way matter.
Who is changing their messaging, Ronald?
Halimbawa, si
I
Abalos.
think dapat natin tanungin dyan si Tocayo eh. Mukhang si former Secretary Abalos, nagbago na siya, solido na yata siya. From bilis action to solido. Si Jaime Marcos had changed, no? Her messaging. Although nandun pa rin yung I may solusyon. Naging itim at ngayon ay may lusong, no? Ah, lulong pala. Ako yung
Lulong.
lusong sa datos ngayon.
Oo.
Iba yung lulong sa lusong.
Lulong.
Oo. Diba? Medyo hindi
Nalulong.
natin alam kung it would
Nalulong
make
sa
a
dalawang ilog.
difference. Pero yun ang makikita natin on May 12.
Hindi nagkaroon ng traction yung yung black against
Itim.
white, yung darkness.
Itim.
Yung ganong spill.
Well,
For
I
a few
don't know.
days.
Hindi nagkaroon ng traction, ano.
I don't know actually how long they've been playing it up and where at what point. But yun, that did not register the survey.
Okay. Maraming salamat for joining us this afternoon, Pulse Asia Research President Ronald Holmes.
Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat.
Bless you. Gasun
Thank you,
type.
Professor.
Sabi nga ni
Bless you.
Harry Roque, gasun type. Hindi, nag-atching siya.
Gesunday.
Akala ko
Yes,
basbas ka na rin eh. Okay, you just need to take a break. We'll
Auf
be right back.
Wiedersehen.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
We've got developing news and the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao. And of course, with us on Zoom, our co-anchor Regina Lay, all the way from Germany. Danke for staying with us. Tama ba?
Tapos ka na kumain, Reg?
Tapos na.
Tapos
Thank
na,
you.
tapos na. Uy, bago tayo magpatuloy doon sa susunod
Teka,
natin.
napakilala ko kayo ulit eh. Si Ami Paminton, of course, from the Philippine Star.
Okay.
Paranaque, salamat.
Kala ko,
At
kala ko,
of course,
napakilala
Tito
mo eh.
Ronald Llamas, ang ating papakisarap-sarap.
Papikulina.
Thank you for staying with us today.
Kwan pa,
Ano ba?
condolence lang para kay Ricky Dabao.
Oh.
No, namatay siya nung isang araw, nakaburol siya ngayon sa Heritage yata. So, kaibigan ko yan eh.
Ronald talaga.
Artista na talagang nag-focus sa kanyang craft. No, hindi katulad ng mga ibang artista na binalak mag-iba ng
Yan ka
ng
na naman.
career, no?
Yan ka na naman.
Kaya-
Ikaw naman,
Hindi,
it's
parang
a
sayang
free
eh. Dahil
country.
ang galing-galing ni Ricky Dabao.
Yeah.
Engineering yan eh, sa Mapua. Pero never niya naisip na pumasok sa politika. Dahil ang tingin niya, mag-focus sa pagiging
Very
artista.
sad.
Diba? Tapos yung
Oo.
mga
Ang
ibang
daming-
artista na nalalaos na, para hindi sila maluos, nagpolitiko.
Okay, sige. Thank you for that.
It's very sad. Ang daming ang deaths, no? Especially itong weekend. With
Oo,
the
yeah.
ramming incident sa NAIA tsaka yung car
Yes.
crash sa SC Tex.
Yes.
Yeah. And speaking of engineers, let's bring in our next guest for today. He's a civil engineer, one of few who has chosen to specialize in the transportation issue, transportation and urban planning.
Yan.
Si Engineer Rene Santiago. Sir, magandang hapon and thank you for
Ng
joining us
hapon,
this afternoon.
engineer, mukhang wala naman kayong planong magpolitiko, no? Kaya mag-i-specialize
Hi,
talaga kayo.
engineer.
Hi, good afternoon, Ami.
Good afternoon.
Ed, Robbie, Regina.
Yeah. Well, sir, thank you for joining us. Sir, you've had a spate of so many accidents, transportation related, in the last week. Parang sunod-sunod eh. Parang it never seems to end. And in aksidente, iba pa yung perpetual nating problema sa transportation and mass transport in particular. But let's start off with all the safety issues with regard to transportation. Itong nakita natin for example sa airport. You're an engineer. Something as simple as a bollard, hindi malan parang if you look at yung nasirang bollard, parang it's just 3 inches deep. Parang ganun lang ang lumalabas eh. What exactly are bollards for if not to stop these kinds of incidents? Can you give us a rundown exactly what went wrong here from a transportation point of view?
From the limited data I have, including looking at the video, it was a driver error. Nataranta ata yung
Yeah.
driver.
Natapakan yung kwan. Accelerator.
Alam mo, marami na tayong incident na ganyan nangyayari before about wala nga lang namamatay, mga ibang sasakyan ang tinatamaan. Yung bigla na lang nag-accelerate or driver error. Natapakan yung accelerator
Yes, sir.
instead of the brake. No?
Yes, sir.
It's hard to pinpoint na kasalanan ng bollard ito. No? A bollard is usually, or any structure or fixed structure designed for safety, has a limited strength to resist force, no? Baka lumampas ito sa standard force, no? Obviously, yung lugar na yon was not intended to have a high-speed cases of
Yes.
vehicles. No?
Pero sir,
Kasi
typically-
departure, hinto.
Yes, sir.
For some reason,
Yes, sir.
biglang
Yes, sir.
barangkada na napakabilis.
I understand, sir. Pero sir, typically, how deep should bollards go?
I really can't remember now the standard niya, no? Very specific. Ika nga, it depends on the strength. It can be kung gaano kalakas ang dapat niyang i-resist, no? In this case, I don't know whether I should blame the bollard.
O, yung driver. Pero engineer, ang balak daw ngayon gawin ng NAIA, parallel parking na lang dyan. Ang problema, napaka-iksi. Alam naman natin yung
Oo nga,
lugar
sir.
na yan. That's the departure area.
Ang siksikan
Ang iksi-iksi eh. Makakaya ba yun yung kung hindi na daw parallel, hindi na pala parallel, yung,
Diagonal parking.
oo, hindi na ganyang diagonal, oo.
It will
Kaya ba
create a
natin yun? Ang liit-liit na
Well,
lugar
that
eh.
used to be the old system and that the system on Terminal 3, no?
Yes,
Yan sa
pero malaki
Terminal
yun eh.
1.
Malaki yung ano dun eh.
Pero ang effect yan is traffic congestion.
Yes.
You will, the parallel parking, parallel loading and unloading has the effect ng congestion, nagkakatagalan yung mga vehicle. Yung diagonal parking should not have created that kind of speed. Kumbaga
Oo
sa
nga eh.
kwan, it boils down saan talaga yung problema, no? I think in the accident case, you have to go at the root cause of the problem, not the preventive side. Because accidents do happen.
Pero ano yung root cause of the problem, engineer?
Tulad nung sa Tarlac, no? Obviously, nakatulog daw yung driver.
Yung
Now, why
driver.
did the driver fall asleep? My hunch or my gut feel because of knowing some of the operational experience ng mga bus company, sumobra yan sa 10 hours working.
Oo, ang layo.
So, no, alam mo, nung mga survey namin nung araw sa mga transport operators, drivers, umaabot sila ng 12 hours a day. Average.
Yes.
So, that should really cause you reason na maantukin yan, mapapagod.
At
There should be rest time.
At kaya marami yung tumitira para magising.
Tumitira ng drugs.
Engineer,
Sa-
nag-order
Gising.
ngayon ang Department of Transportation, nag-order ngayon si Vince Dizon na lahat ng bus company kailangan yung driver hanggang 8 hours lang ang duty. Ang tanong lang, mai-enforce kaya yon?
They have to look at the practices ng mga bus company. Kasi nung una itong spate of road accident also happened in 2010. Sunod-sunod
Yes.
yung mga bus, no? Kaya we have to look back at history and the cases of accident. Anong root cause, no? Yun, before at that time were the cost of mga bad vehicle standards, no? Not roadworthy yung mga buses. Nagtitipid sa gulo, put na mga gano'n, no? The brake system doesn't work. In this case, it's a driver failure naman, no? And the practices nung lumalampas. It could be also traced na dahil lumalampas, dahil boundary system, no? Alam mo, there are so many contributory factors, eh. Pagka magkaroon, dahil it comes from many causes, eh. Obviously, the basic causes nitong two recent accidents sa Naya at saka sa Tarlac were driver error, not mechanical
Magkakaroon daw
failure.
engineer ng compulsory drug testing sa mga PUV drivers every 90 days. Ano yung nakikita niyong mga posibleng problema in the application of that new rule every
Yung
90 days daw?
Yung government testing. Alam mo, nung araw, naglagay sila ng drug testing sa before you can renew your driver's
Yes, sir.
license.
I remember
Yes.
that.
Which is actually a fool's errand dahil it doesn't really have an effect. Dahil after a few hours or I think 24 hours na hindi ka
Wala na yung
mag-drive,
drugs.
wala na yung effect, no?
Pero,
So the 90 days,
pero na iba
it
ngayon,
might help
engineer,
if you do it scientifically, no? Na may mga unpredicted na bigla ka random testing, bigla na lang, no? Pero kung yung 100% testing, it will end up as nothing, no effect.
Tsaka sir, parang it becomes a point of corruption eh. Kasi nagiging tubong lugaw eh. And from what I heard, yung ibang mga lab na to, yung mga may-ari, mga
Yung isa yatang
opisyal.
bago ngayon, engineer, ay tinaasan ni Secretary Vince Dizon yung penalties sa mga bus company in the hundreds of millions. Ha? Yung hindi simple yun. Magsasara yung bus company kung magkakaroon sila ng aksidente based doon sa non-implementation ng rules. Nakita ko yung penalties, ang laki. No? So talagang
It's very
mapapwersa
punitive.
sila. No?
Very punitive yun. But that should be followed with the measures kung ano talaga ang practices ng bus company that contributes to that kind of failure, no, accident. Kung penalty lang, madaling gawin ng gobyerno yan eh. We have stick penalty for bad driving and so on. We still have bad drivers.
Pero ngayon, magbabayad yung company. At malaki, malaki.
Sinususpend na nga nila. That's suspended ka for several days. That will be millions na ang effect sa kanila. No? It's a severe penalty that will take them. But I think it should also be followed ng positive effort. How do we improve safety from their practices? Yun eh.
Okay.
Isa pang common problem, engineer, yung laging nawawala yung brake. Hindi ba kailangan regular maintenance yun kung meron kang PUV service, yung tracking? Di ba, wala bang ganong requirement? Hindi ba meron ganong requirement? At kaya ba nating enforce yung requirement?
Kami, mabuti na mention mo yan. We do have the TOS testing facility. No? We have the so-called private motor vehicle inspection station. Unfortunately, and this is the unfortunate part, they only have it, I think, in 50% or 60% of the country. Yung karamihan ng lugar sa Visayas, Mindanao, walang PMBIS. Doon sa Metro Manila at saka some regions in the Luzon, they have complete PMBIS. But LTO does not require it 100% for all. Meron silang mga exception. The three transport vehicles na hindi nila sinasubject sa ganun test, bus, trucks, and jeepneys. Pag tinignan mo yung accident statistics, these are the vehicles that are most commonly involved in accident.
Tsaka mas mabigat may momentum yan eh.
Bakit hindi sila required? Bakit sila yung hindi na-required?
Alam mo, matagal ko na sinasabi, yan ang unahin, dapat hindi yung sa private.
Yes sir, mas delikado yun because it carries momentum eh. These are heavy vehicles eh.
Alam mo, I myself will bring my car sa renewal sa PMBIS. And I must say, they are very, very strict, no? In fact, to the point na kahit na hindi related sa safety na pwede mong i-correct, may busted light ka lang sa rear. Ayaw nilang ituloy.
Yeah.
Which I said, there should be a pass-fail. And yung iba, bahala nang i-correct ng owner. But all are 63 ata or 65 yung checklist nila. Pass-fail na.
Okay, maraming salamat. That was Transport Expert Engineer Rene Santiago. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Salamat, engineer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, engineer.
Something we learned. Something very new that we learned.
You know what's sad? You know what's sad about this? All these accidents is it's getting politicized na rin, eh, no? We're starting to see people jump on it online, and use it to hit the other side, diba?
Yeah, that's true, but that's how it works in the Philippines, unfortunately.
That's the nature of the beast.
Unfortunately talaga.
But unfortunately talaga, pero kahit we're talking about a tragedy, right? 2 tragedies that claimed kids as well, children. And the families are still grieving. Pero nakita ko na on social media, maingay na. Kesyo, yung bollards daw, of course, is a symbol of the failures of this administration. Kailan ba ginawa yung bollards na yan?
2019.
Okay.
It was a contract from 2019 for 5 or 8 million. But anyway, I won't go there. I'll leave that to you guys to figure out.
Over na tayo.
Okay, we're going over time. We have to go. Maraming salamat for joining us today. All the way from Germany, Regina Lay. Danke gut.
Thank you. Danke schon.
Danke schon pala.
Danke schon, guys.
Tikman mo dyan ang blood sausages.
Uwi mo kami ng German beer. And Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief ng Philippine Sal. Ami, uwi mo rin kami ng mas Paranaque. Traffic, sige. And Tito Rol Llamas, our resident political pundit, all the way from Quezon City. Okay.
I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Join us again tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the
you.
Storycon. I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.